Hey guys, I was talking and I hadn't started the webinar. That's embarrassing. Talk about overcoming fear. That would be one of my fears. Okay, I'll give everybody another second to get online here. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Okay, I think that's probably good. We'll go ahead and get started. Tonight we're going to talk about a really important topic about overcoming fear. We called this session Take Fear by the Reins, Understanding and Working Through Fear with a Plan. I'm Jen Roland Barker. I'm this girl over here, and my awesome business partner, Kristen DeLibrio, who is now, I can introduce her as a world champion trainer and coach. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, everybody.
Hopefully I won't give her the big head here, so she'll still be hanging out with us. But we are the co-creators and co-founders of HorsesU.com. And we've been trainers and coaches for many, many years. And Kristen just took on the Western Dressage the last couple of years and just had a lot of great success at the Western Dressage World Championships. Is that what they call it, Kristen?
Yeah, it's just the Western Dressage World Championships.
World Championships. Awesome. Well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
So we want to point out to everybody, we know how busy you guys are and you've got a lot going on, but just for this time, especially this is a really important, I'm joking around, but it's an important subject. But so please turn off your phone and close down anything else that might be open, because this time is about you and it's important to you, or you wouldn't be here with us tonight. So what Kristen is going to share with us tonight is part of our Horses U Riding Academy. And I'll go ahead and switch the screen over to you, Kristen.
Alrighty.
See if I see how to do that. Can you do it on your end? Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Hold on, I gotta exit back out.
Attendees, staff. How do I do this? It's usually right in front of me.
I got it.
You
Can you
got
see
it?
my,
Okay.
can you see my screen?
I can see your background. Yes, I see your slides. Yay.
Perfect.
So if you
All right.
guys hold your questions until the end, and we'll answer questions at the end of class here. So and anything we can help you guys with, let us know. Kristen, can you expand your screen any more than that?
I have it on full screen.
Okay,
Is it
there we
not
go.
showing? Is it
Yeah,
not showing?
I got mine going. I got it now, I think so. I
Okay.
should have asked. I didn't ask. Can you guys all hear us okay? Can you raise your hands for us and let us know? Yay, thank you. Thank you. We've got a ton of people here tonight. Thank you guys for being here with us. Okay, I will be quiet now and let you.
All right. Well, welcome everybody, and I'm excited. This is one of my, I shouldn't say favorite courses or topics, but this is one I really, really enjoy. I spent a lot of time on the Working Through Fear and Take Fear by the Reins. Um, so for tonight, I have just pulled out some of the important pieces, or what I think are really important pieces out of this course. So for tonight, I want you to think about just being open. I'm going to talk a lot about emotions and meanings of emotions. It might be things you've heard before. It might be new things you haven't heard before. But I just ask, be open um, to hear new things and new ideas. And with that, we are going to jump right in. So I love this quote. I always want to start with this quote. So focus on where you want to go, not on what you fear. So be aware of how you are feeling and what you are focused on as you feel that. So awareness, and the more awareness you can build for yourself, the more tuned into your emotions you can become. And think about as well, there is no good or bad emotion. All emotions are messages, and all emotions are there to teach us or tell us something. So, some people would be like, well, fear is a bad emotion. Well, there is no good or bad. It is just what we are feeling at that time about something in that moment. So we can learn what it is we need to know about fear, but what we don't want to do is put judgment on that. Like we don't want to say, oh, I'm feeling happy, so that's good, or oh, I'm feeling sad, so that's bad. It's just where we are, and we have to honor where we are to really understand what we can do to change how we're feeling. And the more awareness you have, it creates the ability to feel fear while it's still small and before it escalates and gets bigger. So that's really the goal, is to start to be able to pick up on the minute you start to feel something in your body, the minute you start to think that thought, and pick up on it right away so you can stop and address it instead of waiting until all of a sudden, you're shutting down, or you're so full of fear that it's already escalated to a much larger emotion. So as we talk about fear tonight, there are two types of fear. The first fear is fear of physical harm. So that means that there is a risk or a threat of physical harm or a threat to your physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual well-being in a way that physically is going to cause you harm. And the second is the fear of failure. And this is a fear or anxiety of going through with something. It's the fear of looking foolish, not doing something well. We could go on and on that one. And so this is also categorized as vulnerability. So the fear of failure. So what we want to start with is we want to start by identifying what fear you're feeling. So you can ask yourself the following questions to determine which fear you're feeling. So a question would be, are you in fear of your physical safety? Or are you in fear of trying or doing something that has a risk of failure, looking foolish, painful to follow through and do? And then I want to move into the actual breaking down and the meaning behind the emotions. And understanding and getting the meaning behind fear and the emotion that goes with fear is the first step, really, in becoming aware of what our emotions are trying to tell us. So if you can take the emotion and really break it down to learn more, then you can begin to help dissipate the emotion, like the emotional response or reaction. I call this the logical approach. So it starts to get us to start thinking with our mind. So fear. So the message behind fear is intuitive, focused awareness of a threat to one's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual well-being. So let's go a step further. What can fear tell us? So fear is our natural warning system. And fear is really a high state of alertness. So it increases our focus, our readiness. Um, you know, just like horses that are fight or flight animals, fear is meant to be a trigger for us to be ready for something, to be ready to fight, to be ready to run. So it kind of heightens all of our senses in case we had to react quickly. So if you welcome it, you will feel nimble, balanced, and agile. And you do this by getting the message behind the fear. So fear is a protective emotion. And fear asks us to honor ourselves, our instincts, and our intuition. And that is a big piece when we talk about really understanding fear. So many times I feel like we're taught, work through it, you're not afraid, overcome your fear, push through, you can do it. that's not really honoring ourselves or our intuition. If something is telling us, hey, I don't think this is a good idea, we need to acknowledge that, and we need to honor ourselves by acknowledging that and say, hey, you know what, this doesn't feel right, or I kind of have a bad feeling, or starting to really pick up on what is that conversation that your intuition is having with you and that you're having with yourself. And fear is activated when you encounter change. So it helps you to identify, sort, understand, translate, and act upon cues that you receive. So if you're in a new situation, um, fear comes in to help keep us a little more on our toes, as some people would say, or aware of everything going on around us. When your fear lifts and goes away, then you have received the message it has for you. And so a little bit later, I'll talk about a way to actually work through that to help it dissipate. But in our culture, it teaches us to override fear. But we always have to honor the fear in the barn and move away from the danger if we feel like we're in actual physical danger. But we always have to honor that we're feeling afraid. There's a reason that we have fear. So if you suppress fear, it will only get larger. So we avoid this by asking some questions. So a question to ask is, what is the threat? And what must I do to move to a position of safety? So what is going on that I'm feeling fearful of? And what can I do so that I feel like I'm safe? So then I can work through what is coming up for me, what I need to do to take the fear itself. And intensifications. So if we ignore that we're feeling fear, so kind of like I talked about, we're not feeling fear. We're going to work through it. We're going to push through it. We're going to just conquer this fear. That is ignoring the fear and not really honoring where you're at and saying, this is how I feel. So if we suppress that fear and we don't listen to ourselves, it will intensify, and it can intensify as worry and anxiety, which is essentially trapped fear. You can feel dread, a nagging feeling, nervous, apprehensive. And this is all because you're trying to just push that down inside and be like, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, instead of being able to say, I am afraid, let's work through that. When you ignore fear, it can turn into confusion, which blocks your ability to move forward. It can lead to dulling of the senses. And again, this is a little more, if you have tried to suppress the fear for a long period of time, your senses will start to dull because you're not listening to yourself. So, instead of, ooh, I don't know, today this just doesn't feel right, maybe this isn't a good idea, those little conversations are going to start to change, and you're not going to hear them as much. And then it can turn into panic and terror. So if you ignored the warning when it was small, you're now in survival mode, and your body is going to push into survival mode, which can be, I need to escape. And it can turn into disassociation. So you're cut off from your own body and your feelings. So if you can't fight and you can't leave, kind of just like horses, and there's the survival is disassociation. So you don't feel in your body anymore. You don't feel when things start to come up for you. And then fear and vulnerability can have the same emotional feeling. So I really wanted to talk tonight about fear and vulnerability because they really go hand in hand. I feel like vulnerability is just another aspect of fear. So for vulnerability, the message is something significant is about to change or be revealed to you. So your old patterns are not going to work for you, and your false self freaks out. So just want to touch on this briefly, but so our false self really is like our inner, and it's that little voice in our head that's telling us we should, I should, I shouldn't, I can't. Again, we could go on and on and on with those because there's a long list I know that plays through our mind. But these can be our own trapped thoughts. It can be something that we've learned. It can be something that maybe our family has said or believes in. We've learned from school, society. So that false self, that little voice, is not even always our own voice. And when you hear that voice, you need to start to recognize it and replace the comment with a positive comment. So when it's, oh, I can't do this, you need to replace that with, I can try to do this. And try to shut down that voice that you're hearing and try to catch it as you start to hear it. So, when it starts to pop up, the minute you hear the I shoulds, I shouldn't, I can't, try to stop that voice right away and don't let that just go on and on as like a tape loop in your mind. So we're going to talk about vulnerability. So you want to run or fight, but there's no physical danger. Someone feeling vulnerable may feel an irrational need to get away. Someone feeling vulnerable may have more going on for themselves than they're ready to admit or acknowledge. And true gifts may be revealed or some other huge shift. So, someone who cry or who never cries comes in and they're crying and teared up. That can be vulnerability. So the question to ask when you start to feel vulnerable or vulnerability is what belief, behavior, or perception is being challenged? And how might my life change if I accept and adapt to this new insight? So for me, vulnerability a lot of times comes up for myself as judgment. I'm putting myself out there, and somebody could think something about me, or they're going to judge me for how I do this. So a lot of times it's how we think we're going to be perceived, or how somebody is going to see us, what they're going to think about us, putting ourselves out there and having it go horribly wrong and feeling like we failed in front of everybody. And then, how might your life change by stepping out there and trying is, you took the step to try, and that's going to give you confidence to try again. And a lot of times it goes better than we think it's going to. So, that also is a positive as well. So the intensifications of vulnerability. So just like fear, if we try to ignore what we're feeling and say, I'm not feeling fear, I'm not feeling vulnerable, I'm fine, it's going to intensify until we're willing to say, okay, this is how I really feel. So anytime we try to suppress or push down fear or vulnerability, it's just going to get bigger and bigger until we're at a point where we have to address it because it's gotten so big. So vulnerability can turn into panic, anger, rage, because the conditioned personality or the false self goes into flight or fight mode to get away from the new insight. Panic occurs when the false self needs to run away. So that little voice is saying, you can't do it, you can't do it. You shouldn't be here. What are you doing? And then we start to feel panic. And then anger or rage is the product when the emotions are ignored and suppressed, so they break out in an explosion. So if we're feeling vulnerable by putting ourselves out there, but we try to pretend like we're not, then it might turn into panic, and then we might snap at somebody for doing something, even though that's not really what we're angry about, but then we have this big emotion that is just getting bigger and bigger inside of us, and it has to come out in one way, shape, or form. And then I want to talk a little bit about the distinction, because to me, fear and vulnerability really are intertwined. So fear is an external threat. So fear really is a result of a threat to your physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual well-being. So the threat of I could get hurt. This could hurt me. Vulnerability is an internal threat. So it's a fear of something opening up or changing. Um, for me, a lot of times it's the vulnerability of putting yourself out there, being open to others' critiques. Um, and so fear is external and vulnerability is internal, even though they really can feel the same as you're feeling those emotions in the moment. And then the deeper your understanding and the meaning, the messages and the feelings of fear and vulnerability, the easier it's going to be for you to really feel that and understand and pick up on it. And when it's small and as it's first starting, like as soon as you start to feel fear or feel vulnerability. And so next, I wanted to give you a tool to break down fear and approach fear from an even more logical mindset as well. So I'm going to give you a couple questions that you can ask that we're going to go through on how to actually break down fear piece by piece to come up with a plan or a logical approach of how you are going to change the situation. So I wanted to start with, though, the number one rule is always move to a safe place. So, if you're stuck in a tough position, if you're in the middle of something and you're starting to feel fear, ask for help or find a way to get to safety first, and then stop and work through these questions and break down fear and then go back to what you were doing. So there's 4 questions that we're going to go through to break down fear. So this is a little shorter version of the Working Through Fear worksheet. It is really, really long and really in-depth. So tonight I wanted to give you a little bit smaller piece that is a little bit easier to use kind of in the moment or on the fly a little bit more than the really long worksheet that goes with the Take Fear by the Reins. And so I broke it down into 4 questions for tonight. So you start with my fear is, and then you're going to work through each question in order when you're feeling fear. And this exercise can be used like while you're in the middle of doing something and you start to have fear come up for you, or you can actually use this to think through a situation. So you're kind of making a plan before you're in that moment. I know there's things that make me more nervous or apprehensive. So if I feel like there's any fear involved, I like to try to work through it before I'm actually in the situation. So I already have a kind of a plan ahead of time on what I need to do so that I can try to make it the best situation that I can. So the first question is going to be, what is it, the fear I'm feeling? So you're going to identify the fear type. So is it a fear of physical harm or vulnerability? And then what am I afraid will happen? So what scenario are you playing in your mind over and over? And then 3, this is where you start to make the plan. What can I do to make the outcome better? So what can you do to change the scenario replay? So this is where you need to make a plan with action steps or what you need to learn or what your horse needs to learn in order to make the situation better. And I can't stress number 4 enough is always have somebody you can ask for help. I know we are independent, strong horsewomen, and we want to be able to do everything ourselves. But there is a time when if we get in a spot or we don't know and we need to learn something or need some advice, who can you ask for help? So always kind of have that person or a couple of people to um, always kind of have that in the back of your mind as well. That, if you're at the barn and something happens, who do you know you can call and say, hey, I'm standing out here in the arena and I went to get on my horse and my horse shied away and I couldn't mount. Where am I at? What do you think I should do? So always kind of have that person or people that you can call in a situation if you need them. And so my example, I'll work through one of these for you, is I'm afraid of cantering my horse. So that's my fear is I'm afraid of cantering my horse. So the questions to ask, this is a fear of physical harm because, I think when my horse is going to canter and we're going to canter along and then I'm going to fall off. And that's what's going through this scenario in my mind. So I'm afraid that as my horse is cantering, I'm going to lose my balance. I won't be able to stay with them, and then I'm going to fall off. So now as we go, what can I do to make the outcome better? So I like to come up with the most detailed list that I can with as many options as I can think through so that I have a great plan to work off of and a lot of different ways that I can do it and different directions to go. So for me, I can ask someone else to canter my horse first so that I know they're listening. I can make sure I do my groundwork before I ride. I can take Pilates to build my strength and coordination. I can do a lot of trot balance exercises so that I know I'm balanced and ready for the canter. And then ask an instructor for help to make sure my body is in the correct position and I have good balance. So that's just one example of coming up with a plan on how to change the outcome, which is going to change how you're feeling about the situation or about what you're fearful of. And, tonight I shared just kind of the tip of the iceberg, but I really feel like these are keys to help you begin to understand fear and really try to feel it while it's small and make a quick plan of attack. And, fear is an ongoing awareness and it is never ending. We're always having to shift and adjust within ourselves. I mean, every day different things will come up, things will change, and it's just being able to be aware of feeling any little change in our body, in our emotions, a thought that can trigger fear to come up. And I also want you to remember that everyone has fear at different times and that you're not alone. Um, anyone in life has been afraid of something at different points. But anyone who has worked with horses or has horses has experienced fear at different times. So just know that and know that you're not alone. And, we've had some great emails and posts on the Facebook group. I'm so excited about the interaction on there, but I wanted to take a moment and share one email with you and give you some different ideas or breakthroughs. Let me pull the email up really fast. So I'm going to read you the whole email. So I have ridden and lessoned and shown horses for many years, but within the last 2 years, I have had several anxiety or severe anxiety plague my riding. There was no event, no exact moment when it started, it just happened. I have had many tearful lessons, very frustrating rides, and have had numerous panic attacks while riding. This has made enjoying riding again a struggle. I had some sort of breakthrough within the past months. I do not know why, but I was just starting to see a glimmer of why I took up riding in the first place. I welcomed that confidence back joyfully. Then, about a month ago, my horse bucked me off and left me with a concussion. I was battling back from that fright when my horse spooked and then bolted and became a runaway. I stayed on, but have been a nervous wreck since then. I'm trying to make this a positive experience, in fact, that I stayed on as a motivator for me, but I feel I'm coming to the end of my rope and ever getting my confidence back. How can I get past this? Is my nervous riding making my dead broke horse act out? So I wanted to share with everybody some thoughts on my response to that email. And like we were talking about tonight, building your own self-awareness and really knowing what you're feeling in your body and being able to honor that is one of the biggest keys. And another thought would be really make sure that you're doing your groundwork before you ride with the intention of being aware of how you feel in your body. So any emotions, any thoughts, and then really focus in on your horse. So when I say focus in, I really watch my horse intensely. You know, how are they reacting when you ask them to go forward, when you ask them to slow down? Where are their ears? Are their ears perked forward so they're paying attention to what's ahead of them? Do they have one ear on you? Are they pinning their ears? What are they looking at? So are they tuning into you? So that's where I always start before I ever do a ride on any of the horses. I don't think you have to lunge all the time, but I think you need to do groundwork on the line to check in for the day and start with a conversation so that you both are starting out in the same place when you go to ride. And, you know, as for will a horse react if we're nervous and we're riding? Yes, they will. If you remember, there's actually an exercise in the Ride is One course that kind of plays with feeling different emotions, and then you see how your horse changes with each different emotion that you feel. So a horse definitely will react to anything that we're feeling. But to work through that, my suggestion is the moment you feel anything shift, any anxiety, any worry, a bad thought, and that's a big thing too, is really being aware of what you're thinking. So even if it's a trigger thought of, oh my gosh, what if they spook? Oh my gosh, what if they take off? Oh my, you know, anytime you start to think anything. So just stop. So stop your horse, sit there at a whoa, and breathe and talk through your feelings out loud. And talking out loud is the key. You have to speak what you're feeling and start to work through that out loud, because sometimes by just speaking words and talking, we can help to dissipate the emotions that are coming up. And so talk through what you're feeling, what you were thinking, and talk as in-depth as you can and make sure it's out loud. And if people are around, you can talk quietly, but make sure that you're verbalizing and talking about it and start to work through it on your own as you're sitting there. But every time you start to feel something shift or change, stop. Honor what you're feeling. Say how you're feeling. Say what you're feeling and thinking and what's coming up for you. And wait till you feel a little bit better and then move forward again to riding. And if 5 minutes later you start to feel some anxiety or fear, stop and do it again. The worst thing that we can do is try to say that we're not feeling afraid and push through when we're on a horse. Because even if we're trying to say we're not afraid, if we are, the horse knows that we are. And by stopping and talking about it and letting yourself relax just a little bit and then moving forward, that is going to help your horse to stay relaxed and give them a minute to breathe as well, so that they're going to feel the same emotions that are coming up for you. So when you stop and you breathe and you take a moment, you're allowing that same thing for your horse so that it just doesn't build and build inside of you and then build and build inside of your horse. So do you have anything you want to add to that, Jen?
Um, it's so hard because we don't know the whole situation, and I'm sure you've tried a lot of different things. So I think that's excellent advice. Some practical tips might be really, make sure that your horse has a whoa on the ground. Like, uh, it doesn't. And a big thing I would say is let go of shoulds. Like, I shouldn't be afraid because I've ridden all my life, and I mean I can totally understand with what you're saying. When I was a kid, I rode anything. I was brass. It didn't matter. I would ride anything. I was brave. It didn't matter. And I had kids and I got afraid. And I've heard, and then I had to work back through that. And it did teach me so much about myself and taught me so much that we're able to share with you guys. But that's kind of a common theme. A lot of us, I think, that we weren't afraid, and then we became afraid, and some of it is because you have responsibilities, or you hear a horrible story of how someone else got hurt, and it plants a seed. But so I would let go of any shoulds, and we also don't know the energy level of your horse. There's a lot. If your horse is high energy, make sure he's tired before you get on. That will help you a lot, along with the exercises that Kristen's recommending. And I would just make sure you have a really solid whoa on the ground, and then move up. Like, if you feel fear, you could walk 10 feet, whoa, back up. Do it 100 times. Do it whatever it takes to feel that you have more control of your stride. Um, Teach your horse the one rein stop. That fear of not being able to stop is huge, and anyone that says, "Oh, I'm not afraid of that," that's foolishness, because that's a real thing. That's hard, and it's I hear stuff like that and I just like cringe. I'm like, what do you mean? It's not right. You wouldn't get in your car with no brakes. So I would, practice. That's a practical tip combined with the mental thing, and the mental, not mental things, but the mental tools that Kristen's providing, which are so huge. And one thing I did want to add too is, in talking about the fears of vulnerability, meaning like putting yourself out of there, and fears of what other people think, and um, that. And I know that I'm not saying any of us do this, but I just want us to be aware that if you do that and don't become honest with yourself in that can create, over time. I can think of a couple examples from my coaching days, at the horse shows, that if people were not honest about that, eventually they start to have really big problems with their horses, just like random freaking out, because there's this tension, and it's never let go of. And there are physical reasons, like riding too tight, or your timing's way off, and you're not in the moment. You're not a partner with your horse because you're always thinking of other things. So there can be physical reasons with it, but I believe a lot of it is emotional for the horse too, because they can never let go of all that. So it's just so important to confront our feelings. And I used this example last week, talking about some of the exercises that we did in France. And I won't, share the whole thing, but part of it, we had to let the horse go. It was a horse we didn't know, so we worked with them for like 10 minutes, and then we had to let them go and see if they'd stay with us. Well, the second I had a fear, the second, I wasn't fear of it wasn't a physical fear, like a fear of getting hurt, but a fear, like a vulnerability fear. That horse left in like lickety split, 1 second, no pause, like the second I thought it. And I don't think my body changed. So we have to become aware of our thoughts, and not ignore it. That's, I think, like Kristen shared, we're taught so much in our society, just It doesn't matter if you're scared, just do it, And there is something to that. Still just do it, but just do it with a plan. Don't let it go. Don't let your passion go, but don't go out there and just ride without doing your homework, because you can get hurt really bad. Let's see, if it's okay, I'll share a little bit about the course real quick, and I'm going to show, and then we can take questions, because I'd love to help some more of you guys with some ideas.
All right,
Uh,
it should be your screen. All right.
can you see it?
Yep.
You see me? Okay, so here's the Working Through Fear course is what Kristen was talking about tonight. And I want to share for members to make sure you guys can find this. So when you're logged in, you're just going to scroll down, and it's a part of the confidence course, which all this goes hand in hand, with your groundwork, and this is part of the mental strategies of all that. So you can find it either here in the Unbreakable Confidence course. It's like the second module, and otherwise you're going to scroll all the way down here, and here it is, Working Through Fear. And then you'll find all the workbooks. Kristen's done an amazing job. She worked really, took a long time to put all this together. So there's going to be your materials. So it'll have, you can download the ebook here, and then there's everything is in the ebook. And then if you're like short on ink, which I know I am, like today I'm short on ink, and you don't want to print out everything, these are kind of the back end that will that's got all the questions and everything in it. And then the Fear Emergency Kit helps you make a plan of what you're going to do if something comes up. And I think we can all relate to, we can have the perfect day with our horse and have a second of fear. You might have a spook in there, even with a really broke horse. I went and rode Hippo today, and he's always so good, but he was a little up and looking around, and for a second, I took his head, and I was like, pay attention to me. That's another great tip that I think we should say, is make sure your horse has got his ear on you. You can walk him in a little circle, stay away from the straight lines for a little while till you get your confidence back up. Let's see, so that is where it is for the members, and I'll share with you guys a link in the other thing. And then if you're not a member and you're interested, I'll just share real quickly. We're doing this. I need to give you guys too the details of the challenge that we're doing. We are doing kind of a fear challenge. We called it the Spooktacular challenge. So we're trying to make light, actually, of this is a serious situation, and it can be, just make you freeze in so many parts of your life. Fear can. So we tried to make light of this and to present a challenge. So I'm going to make a video tomorrow for the members area, but basically all you're going to do is, we made a separate group, a separate Facebook group, so you'll go in there, join with the link, and then share. We're going to do this till November 15th, so I don't want anyone to run out and be like, okay, I rode my 2-year-old for across the mountain or whatever. No, just kidding. But I want you guys to do your groundwork. We don't want, the goal is not for anyone to get hurt. And so you're going to write what your fear is, and we're going to work together. Kristen, I can help you if you need help making a plan of, what groundwork you're going to do. We can help you come up with the affirmations. We'll help you any way we can. Just let us know. And then by November 15th, in the group, we'll have a picture or whatever up, so we'll all post in the same place, and we'll just post our story of what we did and how we overcame our fear. And then we'll all vote together. We'll all like the ones that we like. And gosh, we have had some people overcome huge challenges in our group that have gotten hurt really bad. broken backs. I hate it. I don't want to cause fear. I don't want to cause fear by talking about it. But we've had some people overcome some really big things, and I think it's going to help us all to encourage each other for one thing, and just to take action to overcome all that. And so the person that gets the most likes, we ordered this really cool belt buckle, and so it's going to look like this with the turquoise in the corners, and but it's going to say Horses U Challenge Champion. So we're so excited about that. So if you're not a member and you're not interested in being a member, you can join and be a part of the challenge for $7. But members, it's all free. You guys are all covered. So the members area includes all of our courses and training. We've got our private Facebook group. We have monthly Saddle Club member meetings, and then you get replays to all of this training like we're doing here tonight. And we put together a special deal where you can get in for $125 annually or $13 a month if you're interested. And then as part of this also, we're going to put you in our Horses U Founders Club for free, and that's going to give you a full year of free access. It's going to lock in your rate, and you're going to get discounts on products. So if you guys are already a member, you're already in here, so don't worry about that. And then if you're also interested in joining tonight, we are going to send you a free planner when they come out at the beginning of the year, or not at the beginning of the year, beginning of December. We're so excited about those too. So everything's online. And I don't want to take time from our questions, but you get all the courses, you get access to help in the private Facebook group, and ongoing training, and our monthly Saddle Club meetings. So if you're interested in that, just go to horses-u.com/special, so you get the special deal. Because right now the membership is not even open. So you have to go in through there. And this is for members and for anyone. If you have, questions about anything after tonight, there's a contact us on the top of horses-u.com, and you can always get a hold of us on the side of the pages too. So there's a little box on the sidebar that you always have access there too. So does anybody have any other questions or situations that you are going through that we could talk about while we've got Kristen here with us? You can either type it in the chat box if you don't want to talk, or I could also unmute you. I was going to share one thing when I was leaving for France. I shared this with I was thinking earlier, I tell everybody way too much information. But I always feel like you guys are my friends, so I say stuff. But I just wanted to, when I was leaving for France, I was having this crazy anxiety, which I'm not comparing this to our fears with our horses, but in a way it was. But I ran across this saying, where the fear is, there is the way. So it's a German saying. So, I think our fear, because we're afraid, doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. And it doesn't. And another thing I think that we should definitely point out is not every horse is going to be able to be safe. I don't know if I'm saying that right. You can help me there, Kristen. If I just want that sometimes a horse is not the right match for you. And I have one of my horses that I raised him. I've shared with our group a lot about him. My Charlie horse. He's so special, and I'll always have him. But there's times he overreacts, and he's been professionally trained his whole life. He's great with kids, but he gets caught up in things, and you cannot pay me to take him out on a big trail ride or something like that. So be aware your horse has his history that he's bringing to the table too. So, um, and not sometimes your horse isn't going to be. I don't know. I don't want to be negative about that because I just want everyone to be aware of that because I've seen people. The old saying, "Don't beat a dead horse." Um, well, don't beat a live horse either. Don't beat any horse. But sometimes when something you've tried and tried and tried everything, and if it continues on, um, you know, you sometimes you have to let things go. But I don't know if this is the right place to talk about. I don't want to be negative, but I just want you to be aware of that. Oh yay, Galen has a question. My horse bucks when stressed, so we're working on that. Going along okay at the trot, looking to move it up to the canter on a loose rein. Not there yet. That's good. Yeah, good. Take it in stride, step by step, and get control of your horse's body. Because a lot of times when you see these horses going on the loose rein, there's a lot of work that goes into before that ever happens. So make sure and I know you're a member, so Chris and I both have a lot of experience with that we can help you with. And the in part of the Build Unbreakable Confidence course will give you some body control exercises, and we're going to keep adding to that. So, oh, thank you, Deborah. Deborah says, not a question, but I need to say thank you for this. I was so close to giving up because of my fear of physical harm that I almost completely gave up. The support here is amazing. Oh, thank you so much for the encouragement. And I can confess that I have been there. I've been there, and like when I had a lot of horses in the training program, it might be one horse, and don't ignore it. Go back to your groundwork and your mental work. Here's a question. Terry says, my horse bucks when I go into a canter. How would you work with a horse that does this? Do you want to take this, Kristen? Sorry, I started talking away here.
Oh no, it's okay. Well, first thing would be make sure there's not any soreness issues like in the back or hocks or anything like that. I always start there first just to always give the horse the benefit of a doubt. And then from there, I actually have a horse that is in training, and his thing is he would, and it wasn't a full buck. I call it an elevation of the hind end. It's almost like a hop. It was. I don't know how to explain it because it wasn't like a buck or he
That's a
kicks out.
fancy way to say that.
Yeah, but his hind end comes up, and he does that going into the canter, and then he would go like a couple steps, and then he would do it, and then he would go like 3 steps, and then he would do it. So the biggest thing I did with him was I did a lot of trot to canter to trot to canter to trot to canter transitions. But what I did is I would ride like a 5 meter, so kind of like a small circle with, a little bit of bend to the inside, make sure it's kind of a forward trot. And then when I would ask for the canter, it wasn't okay, my legs back, cue for a canter. It was almost more of a push them from the trot more forward until they break into the canter to start with. And I would always do that like as I was coming out of the circle for the bend, and then I would always stay in like a 20-meter or half ring circle at the canter. So everything I did was a small trot circle to a bigger canter, and then as soon as I would come down to a trot, it was back to a small circle, and then back up to a canter circle, and then smaller circle to break down to the trot, so that I always had control of my horse's body. Because if you have them on a circle and they're on a bend and they're comfortable trotting forward nice forward moving trot on a circle, on a bend, and they're comfortable and they're relaxed, you have control of them. So as you do your trot circle, then just push more, almost for more trot until they break into the canter, then come back down to the trot. Um, and then once he was doing that, then I would go longer periods at the canter. Um, and now I don't do circles before the canter. Now I just slide my leg back, ask for the canter, and he'll canter off. But sometimes when we're teaching a horse to canter or a horse that hasn't been cantering a lot, sometimes we as riders will overdo the canter cue, even if we're not aware that we are, because we're thinking trot, 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 and then we're thinking, all right, canter. So that's why I like to think of it as you're going from a trot, like a forward trot, and it's almost like you just push and ask for a little too much trot, and they move forward into the canter so that you have a little more forward motion going from the trot into the canter. And I always do that on contact as I'm starting to canter one. And not, where you're pulling on their face, but you always want contact so that if you're going to the canter and they go to buck, then I would immediately go into a small circle and get control of the body. I might spank them with my leg a little bit, so that it's reinforcing they have to get forward off the leg. That wasn't acceptable. And then whenever I ask for, well, any upward transition, you want to think about just a nice push, and then you're nice and relaxed, and just kind of follow your horse. So that's my input.
I think that's a great point. Remember the straightaways, because straightaway creates speed, right? So circle, serpentine, and like what Kristen was saying, and then a lot of times when you cue, if you do have your fence there, cue not towards the gate always, but if you've got a fence, cue towards the fence. Right when you're on that edge, when you're coming around and going towards the fence, and then that way, if something goes, that's going to give you a little bit more confidence, because if something goes wrong, you can push them into the fence and stop them. So I thought, I wasn't thinking about that, about the serpentines. Serpentines are huge. Just ride your S's, and you'll start to get more and more control of your horse's stride. That's awesome. Okay, let's see. Pam, I purchased my horse in June, very well trained, always confident in this past summer showing him. I recently moved him from the trainer to his winter home. And then she says, I think I relied upon my trainer too much. Can you give us a little bit more? Are you having trouble with him at home, or is there anything in particular that you can share with us a little bit more of what he's doing? Sometimes you just have to get out there and build your own relationship, even when they're trained. We've talked about this a lot. Like, I have an example of something I did, which is embarrassing. When I first started training, Kristen always tells us not one program works for every horse. So, I was going to say, go back to your groundwork, go back to the very beginning, even though he's going to go through it quickly. It's going to give you confidence and give him confidence in knowing, hey, I already know how to do all this stuff. But, oh, okay, she says, not really trouble, but just lost confidence in myself. Well, this will build your confidence. So just work through and start at the very beginning. I don't know if you're showing Western, or, you could do showmanship at home. Always get your edge off, lunging with intention, like Kristen said, but also get the energy off a little bit. Pay attention to your weather. But I was going to share, when I started, I was young, and I bought this walking horse and from the horse sale, and I would sometimes buy them and teach them things and then resell them and help them get a better home. So I bought this broke walking horse, and I didn't know anything about walking horses. And I put him in the round pen, and I was doing my, fancy round pen reasoning, wiggle, wappy, tappy thing. He left. He ran out the side and left me. So that was not confidence building for anyone. But I was saying, start back to the beginning. But remember, if your horse already knows a lot of that stuff, keep that in mind also. So yeah, Pam, I would work through, yeah, just what you just said. She said, I think talking through it is a great idea. Yeah, talking through it, admitting it, and it sounds weird, but if you're out there by your horse, talk to your horse and be real about it. They know our emotions, but I think it's more upsetting to them when we try to hide it than, if you're scared and you're just trying to pretend you're not, it doesn't do any good for anyone. Yeah, talk it out. Let's see here. Um,
There's a couple about spooking.
oh yeah, we're going to cover that next week too. Um, but we can talk about it a little here. But we're gonna next week our topic is despooking. So this week we're working on ourselves, and next week we'll work on our horses. Do you wanna take that, Kristen?
I'll jump in a little bit because I have one that sounds a lot like Sherry's horse. uh, I have one that was a big spooker. He used to spook over nothing all the time, and he was a big spooker. When he spooks, he would leave. So I wouldn't even know. I don't know if I'd call him spooking. I think it was just he would just pretend to spook and then try to leave. But he was. Well, I shouldn't say that because he is spooky. He does get scared of a lot, but when he does, he's like, "I am out of here. Goodbye." And but so, desensitizing, of course, but a big key I have found with this horse is, again, having, and not even control, because that's not probably the right word, but having a connection in my riding. When I say connection, it is the connection from the hind end through the body into my hands in the rein, so that he is connected. He is moving back to front. His hind end is moving up. He has contact. He's coming into collection. Now I do Western dressage and classical dressage with him, so he's a big moving horse. But I have found with him, the more powerful he has gotten, like the stronger his body has gotten, his hind end, and he's learned, to balance himself correctly, and he's really learned how to push through his body and really kind of use himself so that he is really coming over his back and into collection, and he's getting a little uphill. I have found with him, the more he is moving through his body, so moving forward, the more his hind end is engaged, the more that for lack of a better word, I kind of have him, because when he's really under me and moving into my hand, I really have, I don't like the word control, but I really have the ability to move the different body parts. Like when I have a leg on him and he's moving forward into my hand, into connection and collection, because I'm pushing him forward and he's in my hand, he can't really go anywhere. For him to actually spook and get away from me, he has to be able to get out of my hand first. And in order to do that, he has to, drop his back and be able to break the collection that we have. So I have found with him, the more that I can control his forward and his push through his body and into my hand, and he's really working hard and he's having to really think and focus in on what we're doing, the less he spooks. So I think focus is a really big piece in horses that want to spook. Keeping their focus, keeping their attention, asking them to always be working and doing something. The walk for the Western dressage is so important, that you can do 30 minutes of a walk exercise, but you're not just walking. You know, you're always asking for collection. You're asking for more push from behind, a swing in the back, a bend to the inside. Like you're keeping the focus of your horse the whole entire time that you're riding. Um, the best, or I shouldn't say the best, but my most favorite thing I've heard from doing the dressage is that when you go out to ride, you are having a conversation with your horse 100% of the time while you're riding. And it is always a back and forth conversation. So at no time are you really just sitting on your horse or just a rider or, you know, talking to people or, you know, you're really focused in on you and your horse and that you're keeping that conversation going 100% of the time while you're out there. You know, and so I don't want to say you're demanding, but you're asking for their participation and you're having a conversation the entire time so that they're always tuned into you and listening to you to see what you want to do next and how you're going to move. And that's another thing I found with really sensitive horses or spooky horses is with a horse that's spooky or really sensitive, kind of like a high response horse, you can keep their feet moving but control where you're going, the better you're going to be. So for those horses, I have another one I'm thinking of in the barn who's, you know, I call her a very high sensitive horse. But so when I ride her, I do a lot of circles, a lot of changing directions. I don't do the same thing over and over. I always try to break it up. The circles change where we're going, all over the arena, different sizes, different places, so that she doesn't have time to start paying attention to everything else going on around her. That could kind of trigger her. She has to really stay focused in on what we're doing because it's changing. Like every couple of seconds, it's changing to something else, and it's changing to something else.
Yeah, that is like just keep them busy. I mean, of course, all your desensitizing work is going to help, but sometimes, yeah, there's certain ones. I have seen Kristen go leaping by on that horse. She's like, she's like, everything's all perfect, and I, you know, ride on, and then I'll look at Kristen's like leaps, and then he's back on track, and he's like,
He has lipizzan moves, is what I tell everybody.
like, hey. You just got to keep them really busy, and then a lot of the, you know, pushing the hip in, uh, indirect turns, different things that we do with the pleasure horses are a huge help. And also riding obstacles. You know, I don't know if you ride Western or English Cherry, but you know, like trail sometimes is great for a horse like that. Get them looking at poles on the ground too. Um, let's see, Diana. Oh, Pam. Okay, so you were showing pleasure and lunch him on Saturday and ran around on the lunch line, then calmed down. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just sometimes when you get those pleasure horses home, they're different too because they're used to being in a program. So you've got to try to keep the program going as best you can, and then from my experience, they usually come into you and really enjoy, you know, the pressure being taken off. So you have to, I can help you a lot with that too if, uh, if you need anything else, but it sounds like you're doing good. Okay, so Diana's question, doing groundwork at a canner, tips on getting him relaxed. Um, so is he kind of scrambling, like when you lunge him, and uh, is he just really fast and like unsure of himself? Doesn't have his coordination yet? Is that what you're referring to? Is Diana still here? No coordination and nervous. I I think, and that if you'll just keep going, because I know he's a newer horse to you, if you'll keep going, that he may just be slower in getting his coordination, and just keep talking to him. And kind of what Kristen was saying when she rides, do long trot, long trot, long trot, then kiss, and then try to make your movement soft. And then, if he's real scrambly, like whatever your cue is, like trot, get him back down, like do a lot of transitions, bringing him up and down. And I would wait to do your driving lines until you have some more control, like where you're kind of serpentining on with your lunge line, so you have some body control there before you drive too much. And if you do drive him and canter him on the driving lines, make sure you chew the side of him before you kiss him off to, or however you cue them to canter, because they can take you skiing really quickly when you're flat straight behind them. Do you want to add? Does that help, Diana? And do you want to add more to that, Kristen?
I was going to say, one exercise I have found, I'm learning different groundwork stuff too. It's kind of cool. But so one thing I have found is actually working on different size circles in your lunging session, um, like at the trot and at the canter. So you would do like a small circle and then just like wind them back out to a bigger circle and then pull them back into a smaller circle and then wind them back out to a bigger circle, because that helps them to have to create their own balance. And that I wouldn't do as small of a circle at the canter, but same thing, kind of vary the size of the circle even while you're lunging. And then, I mean, the best advice I have is, just he needs to canter and canter and canter and learn to hold his own balance and to get his own rhythm, and that just kind of comes from time.
And you don't necessarily have to be on him. I love that idea, the bigger and smaller circles. It's awesome. I was going to throw into Pam real quickly about, I don't know if you meant when I just was glancing at that and it said, and he ran around on the lunge line. Some pleasure people I have found, we bought a couple horses that when you lunge them, they run like maniacs, and it's very intimidating to amateurs and to a pro too. It's intimidating. I think that sometimes people, I'm not saying your trainer did this by any means, maybe he was just playing, but sometimes people do it. I think they just want them to get out there and get their exercise out, and they teach them just to run, run, run. So you may need to teach your horse. I'm totally reading into this line here, but I was just going to mention that you may need to let him know, or make him walk, and that he doesn't go like that until you push him on. So I was just going to mention that's something that we've actually experienced with several of our horses that we didn't start but came in and were taught like that. They were a little crazy. Okay, yeah. She says, yes, you are correct. Yeah, I think it's kind of a shortcut, and I don't want to say, yeah, yeah, sometimes at home, the help, I mean, I'm totally speculating, but I think that they get them to run, 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 so they don't have to lunge so hard. And then at the horse show, they're like, da-dump, da-dump, and then when they get home to, see, is there information on the website about what groundwork should be doing, teaching a horse to lunge, etc.? We do have a ton of groundwork stuff in there. We haven't, that's one of the areas of teaching a horse to lunge from the beginning is not in there yet. But there's a ton of groundwork stuff in there. And do we have a section on lunging, Kristen? I know we have lunging for energy. I don't know if we have a lunging from scratch, because I don't think we had a horse that didn't know how to do it. But I think one thing I've found through the years is once you start learning about how to control your horse on the ground with your body and where to push, lunging comes pretty easily.
I was going
Uh,
to say the groundwork, optimize your groundwork 101 sets a huge foundation for being able to send
yeah, I
your horse
forgot
on the
about
lunge
that.
line because it teaches them to move their shoulder and how to respond to your body. And then there are some different lunging exercises based on what kind of horse you have. Like if you have a high sensitive horse, there's some different lunging, like how to lunge with your body so you don't get a big explosion. And then there's in the Ride as One course, there's an example of a high sensitive horse, kind of a centered horse, and then a unmotivated horse. So you kind of see working with those three on the ground. And lunging is very different based on the type of horse that you have and how much energy you put behind your body in a stick or a whip. So I know there's lots of great examples of lunging, and then the optimize your groundwork definitely sets you up so that then when you ask your horse to leave and push them to lunge, they're going to understand what you're asking.
Yeah, I forgot. There's a ton. I forgot all about the optimize your groundwork course. There's a ton. There's a ton of information in there, actually. And another thing that was a big life lesson from the last couple of weeks is in talking about this too. That I think this is very fitting. Is remember to trust yourself. I just thought about this. Pam wrote that her horse calmed down after he ran like that, and that she should look at him differently. Um, that's a thing that I think that we all need to remember is to trust yourself. Like, if you feel a fear, you know, you're better off to confront it, do something about it. That's a safer route. You know, take that route and trust that you know you're not off your rocker. There may be a reason why you feel that way, and trust yourself. Um, you know, in listening to your horse. You might be wrong, but as long as you don't go out there and do something that's dangerous to you or to him, it's you're better off to listen. So yeah, trust yourself. Trust what you know. Um, you know, some of us are new to horses, but a lot of us have had horses our whole lives. You might have been out of it for a while, but it'll come back to you. Remember what you know. That was a big lesson from the trainer from France is know that your horse is always talking to you, and you don't have to uh, you know believe any further into intuition or whatever. If you don't want to, if you're not open to that, that's fine. But you know their body language, they're always talking to you. And sometimes our show horses have gone through and you know become despondent, as Kristen taught us in the lesson tonight, and shut us out. And we do that ourselves. Like I think that's a big cause of depression and you know, unhappiness because we're not listening to ourselves. But you know, just know your horse is talking to you, and you know, trust yourself too. Here is another question. Lunging over canter rails to develop the horse's core strength and lots of transitions too. Watch the balance in your horse. As they develop top line and core strength, the canter will improve. This is good advice. Ground driving is great too. I have a great OTTB who canters very upright and stiff, but now he's slowly making progress doing this. Yes, we love ground driving. That is a an amazing skill. It can help you do so many things with your horse. Um, yeah, I think that's excellent advice. Yeah, the poles will help too. Thank you, Christine, for adding that in. Very awesome stuff. Does anybody else? Do you have anything else, Kristen? Sorry, I went on a little rant about trusting yourself there for a second.
Oh no, I think that's important though. That's really important.
Thank
No,
you,
that
Pam. Thank you for being here with us.
say I think we've covered a lot of good important stuff.
Yes, very, very awesome stuff. So I hope you guys will do the challenge with us. It's kind of a serious thing, and I was thinking about that later. I thought, if someone's really, really scared, they may not want to do this. The idea is not, it may just be, I had to overcome. I'm going to be honest. I did show horses for so long. When I go out and started trail riding this last year, I had, my horse is so good, but I would have this crazy anxiety. I had things that I went through when I was a kid with my grandfather, and all these flashbacks, memories, and whatever. So, years maybe I did my groundwork for a week. I practiced my stops and my whoa. I felt like I had good control. I rode through the woods and came back. I mean, it doesn't have to be something huge, or I cantered a half circle. It's it doesn't have to be huge. So I hope you guys will take the challenge with us, and I'll make a little video and put it in the members area. I didn't make it very clear. I saw of how to get into, because I want to make sure that the conversations about fear are going to be in the same place, so someone doesn't post it in the members only or the practical solutions group, and we don't see it. So make sure to get that in there too. So Celeste, did you want me to unmute you, or did any of you guys that have your hands up, did you want me to unmute you? Let's see, I'll put them down and you can put them back up again. Sometimes hands randomly go up. Okay, I'm gonna assume that I can unmute you. Okay. Oh, Robin said, I was able to overcome my fear of riding on the trail, but I only have 3 more days to use the trails before I can use them for hunting. Yeah, yes, of course, use that. That's perfect. Yeah, and some of us, like I said, some of us have overcome huge obstacles, like a really bad injury, and come back. So if it happened a year ago and you want to use that and it's helpful to everyone else, that's fine too. We want it to help you, and we want it to help everyone in the group, sharing our stories. So that's awesome. Yeah, of course, Robin, use that. I saw your pictures and you were awesome. That's very cool. Okay, Celeste, I'm assuming I can unmute you. Is it okay that I unmuted you? Let's see if we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yay, there you are. Hi.
Hey, no, the only thing that I wanted to say is that sometimes the biggest thing is not really knowing what that fear is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of those, I'm like, okay, here we go.
Well, one of the things that I think is very powerful about the worksheet is, and I don't know if you've looked at that yet, but it's just the beginning part is like you're just writing down what your fear is. And sometimes when you name your fear and you put it on that paper, it gives you power over it. I'm not saying that's the answer to everything, but it is really helpful.
Yeah.
And becoming aware and everything that Kristen was talking about, like if you feel that, stop for a second and name it, and talk it out, and then you're like, and then that's huge.
Yeah, so, but no, I mean, I kind of came in late this evening, but, there's a lot of good information, so.
Yay. Thank you.
Yay!
Kristen did an awesome job.
Good job, ladies. All right,
Oh,
that was all I had to say is, just trying to figure out exactly what that fear is,
Yeah, that's a good
really,
point.
even if you don't know, like, what the kind of root fear is at the beginning, just being aware that you're feeling something is huge. Because even if
Uh,
you don't know why, you're like, oh man, I don't want to, or you're like, oh, okay, here we go. And there's
yeah,
some kind of something there. Even if you don't know what it is right now, just being aware of that and then start to almost kind of play with it. Like, did I think something before I just started? Did I feel something before I just started? Uh, and then just kind of play with that to see if you can get to where it is a definite fear that you can kind of put your finger on. And if not, just being aware that you're feeling it is huge, and then you can work through that.
okay. Well, I mean, and it's not to say that I've never had a fear ever, never, but I'm like, I don't know exactly how it relates to the horse thing here, So, but then I'm an overthinker, so.
So it might not be an emotional fear. It might be a
Yeah,
mental thing coming up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and my super sensitive mare is also an overthinker. So it gets interesting at times.
Oh, well, I think most of the high sensitive horses are thinkers. Like that's something that kind of goes with them. They're really smart and they always are thinking, and you got to keep their mind occupied.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, she's a lovely mare, and my expectation is for her to take me to the high places that I want to go. So working on cowboy dressage and the soft, all the softness and doing it right and that type thing. So we're on quite a learning journey for the both of us. So
Oh, that is
it's
so
fun.
wonderful. So
It's
excited.
fun.
I'm excited for you.
That's
So,
really good. I'm interested in looking into that. I don't, there isn't very many people that do that around here, but I think that would be really fun.
well, so far I think that it's a lot bigger in Texas. Not that, and I'm not moving to Texas, but if I have to go to Texas to show, I guess I will. So,
And we'll watch you and we'll cheer you on.
alrighty. Well, like I said, ladies, once again, you have done a very good job. So,
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us.
alrighty. Well, you guys have a good evening.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Okay, I guess we answered all the questions unless anybody's got anything else. And if I can answer any other questions, we just use this email here and I forward them over to Kristen too. It's just Jenny, JENNY at horses-u.com. If you have any questions, if you want to join us in the members area here, and if anyone's interested in joining the challenge and not the members area, you can just email me and I'll send you that link too. So I guess with that, we will say good night. Thank you, Kristen, so much. That was a very awesome lesson.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed it. I love doing the fear course.
Yeah, gosh, it helps so much. Thank you guys. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Pam. Thank you guys for being here with us. Next week we're talking about despooking our horses, like we said. So hopefully we'll have some fun stuff to go over then. And if anybody's in Ohio, I'm going to be at the Quarter Horse Congress this weekend. So message me if anybody else is going to be out there and you want to meet up. I don't know if any of our group is from Ohio or not, but you never know. So I guess with that, we'll say good night. And God bless you guys. And everyone be careful. And we love you. And we will see you in the Facebook group. And we'll see you next week, hopefully, at the next masterclass. So,
Good night, everybody.